hope you guys are doing all right. My name is Jamarl Thomas. This is the Progressive Soapbox. So I have a show coming up with Guy McPherson at 1 p.m. Eastern. Yes, that's less than 30 minutes. That means that this show is going to be blisteringly quick, but I think it's an interesting show, and so I want to talk about it. Aaron Matei, Buzzsaw, has taken aim on a Vice News, I guess you could say, vlog, dealing with the subject matter of what's taking place in the Venezuelan embassy in D.C. As you know, the Venezuelan embassy has been under siege of sorts, where people who are in the embassy are trying to stop, let's say, an unelected body of human beings from taking over. Meaning, Guaido is not the elected government of that country. The United States should not have, doesn't have the right to elect the person of another country, in which case he's not the elected person of the country. Meaning, how on earth is him and his people taking control of an embassy when he is not the elected government of that country? Even if you want to say there is an interregnum and there's a power struggle, Maduro is not the elected, what's his name? Guaido is not the elected government of the country. So, Maduro leaves. Meaning the embassy itself. The people who are under the government of Venezuela leave when the United States breaks diplomatic ties with them and magically bestows somebody else that the public didn't even know who he was, president of the country. Now, interestingly enough, Code Pink takes over. And Code Pink has been in that embassy trying to prevent Guaido's people from taking it. They've been there for a month. At this point, they've been enduring abuse severely, like abuse where Secret Service, police stand by and watch it take place. People have been trying to, pull the doors. I think at one point they were trying to drill a hose in the door, something like that, some insane stuff. But the point is this: they've been there for like a month. The power has been cut off, and at this point, if I'm not mistaken, they even cut the water off. But they still say they're going to be there for the long haul, trying to protect it for the people of Venezuela, not necessarily for any particular government, which is the important point, but more so for the people of Venezuela, in the sense that there is a coup that's taking place, and the people who are perpetrating that coup should not get the spoils in this case. Hasn't even been decided. This coverage was somewhat slanted, and it was slanted in a way that was a bit insidious and a bit problematic. Buzzsaw calls this out, but I would even make the case that Buzzsaw didn't go far enough in his criticism of this. There's a section of this at the very end that any reporter worth their salt, at the point where the person for the opposition says it, mouth should have literally hit the floor, and there should have been a series of questions that immediately followed where the person said what was utterly breathtaking. First, let's take a look at two parts of this. So, in fact, Buzzsaw's main issue here was, in fact, I'll just let you hear it. There were certain parts. Now, the part I want to talk about, he doesn't have listed on his thing. So, right here.
The Venezuelans portrayed Code Pink as middle-aged white colonizers. Code Pink portrayed the Venezuelans as a mob of fascists. But Code Pink are pros.
A few days ago, we started noticing these people have been getting information, private information about our lives, and putting it out there as a means of, I guess, scaring us.
Now, Vice took what they said at face value. Like, there's clearly an opposition here. There's clearly two sides in contention here. But they let that ride. As if Code Pink has been taking the information and has been doxing these guys. And they also ignore and give a pass to this kind of violence that the opposition has been using in pursuit of their goal of taking the embassy. So that's one point that Buzzsaw points out. But he also points out the creepy thing. So take a listen to this. Now, I'm going to show you the parts that I had issues with after.
We tried to get inside, but the activists upstairs wouldn't let us in, saying we were the hipster media arm of the empire.
that was Anya Pampro who said that. And the funny part about it, she said in a tweet, she says, after watching this, apparently I was right not to let them in. She said they begged her to let him in. She says after watching this, she said she gave him that tweet that you guys were the hipster media arm of the empire. I love that. I love that. But to me, this is not the most egregious or the weirdest aspect of this. At one point in the video, they're talking and Vox, I'm sorry, not Vox. Wait a minute. Let's see if I can find it. All right, let's do my 2 points. So, Aramate's biggest point was, A, you call these guys creepy. You added that in, and you'll hear it when I do my point that I wanted to make points on. A, you allowed them, you called them creepy. You added that. That wasn't something that they added. You added that. You call them pros, meaning they're not doing this because they care about the issue in particular. They're doing this almost as if this kind of professional activists. You could say Code Pink are activists, but they're activists in pursuit of various causes that try to push back against peerless aims, not necessarily on behalf of Maduro, if that makes sense. It's just so happened that this is the aim that these guys are trying to accomplish. And they let that ride. They let what these guys were saying ride without any necessarily pushback, and even gave a pass to the violence that takes place at this, that's been taking place at the embassy. So I want to go back to 2 minutes where Code Pink explains exactly why they're here. Perfect explanation. They even ask her, is she here for Maduro? And her answer to this is, no, we're not here for Maduro. We're here for the people of Venezuela.
Code Pink.
We thought that if they took over this embassy, then Maduro would take over the U.S. embassy. The U.S. embassy would call that an act of war and would invade. We're trying to stop a war here.
I gotta be honest, I don't buy that line of logic. I do buy the line of logic from the standpoint of people wanting to do something. People seeing something egregious taking place, and in seeing something egregious taking place, they have this thing of what can we do to add any level of support to push back against this and to show that we're absolutely against this. And it's one thing to protest, it's another thing to take an active part in the process. No, it's not stopping the United States from taking Venezuela. Not at all. But it is, for them, to some degree, pushing back against imperialistic aims, even if it's just 1 iota, meaning even if it's just an ounce of resistance. It's an ounce of resistance that they've been able to actively participate in to say, we don't agree. This is a no. Let's keep going. But it doesn't necessarily matter. She may or may not be right.
And then these people here were ready to come march in and take over the embassy. And so they brought people in. And ever since then, it's been vicious, it's been aggressive.
And by the way, even in this, it's not the Code Pink activists getting violent. Just saying.
What are you doing? Don't push this. Do not push.
They've blocked all the doors to the embassy, so we can't even get food up to the people.
I mean, are you prepared to hold it indefinitely?
Yes.
And so are you supporting?
And would invade. We're trying to stop a war here. And then these people here were ready to come march in and take over the embassy. And so they brought people in. And ever since then, it's been vicious, it's been aggressive.
What are you doing? Don't push this. Do not push.
Get food up to the people.
Prepared to hold it indefinitely?
Yes.
And so are you supportive of the Maduro government?
I'm not supportive of any government. I'm here for the Venezuelan people on all sides. They always think the way to change things is, maybe the U.S. will come in and make things right. No, that's not what happens.
Did you hear what she said? She said they always think that the United States will come in and change things. That's not what happens. We have a track record of fires that we've been setting all across the world. She's right. That's not what happens. Regardless of whatever her reason is, ultimately, her point is to push back against this notion of U.S. imperialism. This is her way of making a stand. And there's a lot of other people in the embassy that have allowed themselves to make a stand also. Let me go further, 4 minutes in. They're having a conversation with one of the people who are protesters out there. Listen to what she says. She says something absolutely amazing.
As a mob of fascists. But Code Pink are pros.
A few days ago, we started noticing these people have been getting information, private information about our lives, and putting it out there as a means of, I guess, scaring us. It's becoming a little, sketchy at
Like
this
creepy?
point. Creepy.
Do you think, in a way, Code Pink might have brought more attention to the suffering of people in Venezuela?
By the way, this has been accepted full bore. They've just accused Code Pink of essentially doxing them and putting their information out so they can be attacked. Let's keep going.
I don't know, because they've been having parties in the embassy. I don't really think
They've been having parties in the embassy. Okay, let's keep going.
spending their time talking to Congress people.
We tried to get inside, but the activists upstairs wouldn't let us in, saying we were the hipster media arm of the empire.
I really feel like these people have a savior complex. They think that they're gonna come here and protect us from Uncle Sam. I'd like to protect myself. We really don't need Code Pink, or anyone else for that matter, to solve our problems.
Isn't that weird? But you are getting somebody else to solve your problems. That's probably the most egregious thing that I've heard on this video. It's true that letting that other stuff slide is bad. Not challenging on some of the stuff is bad. Letting the violence slide is also bad. Calling them creepy, yeah, that's kind of, that's not necessarily good. But that line is amazing. Code Pink is essentially saying, look, the United States needs to keep its hands off Venezuela. When Guido was having a conversation with Pence and Trump just before he decided to come out and declare himself interim president in a country where 85% of the people didn't even know who he was. No, he didn't win a presidential election. The United States has been trying to get his hands on Venezuela going back all the way since Chavez. It's just so happened that this opportunity presented itself when oil cratered. The environmental situation allowed for the United States to take predatory action using sanctions and some of the patsy nations that are nearby to funnel weapons and resources into that country to destabilize that country. Not to mention the incentives that are built into the process when the opposition knows that the United States government is backing it, and not just backing it, is outright protecting him. If this was the United States, he would be held up for treason. It would have never got to this point. If Nancy Pelosi stood up and declared herself president and called for a violent uprising against Donald Trump, do you honestly believe that her or anybody else that advocated for the position will be walking free? No. If you, on your YouTube channel, get out and say something bad about Donald Trump that's violent, Secret Service will be at your door tomorrow. Thick-necked guys, brutes, having conversations with you about the language that you were using and the threatening nature that you were using towards the president. But Guido is allowed to walk free while screaming at the height of his lungs for uprising. Come on. We're passing sanctions to try to squeeze the country in order to allow the opposition to take power. Did you hear what she said? That we don't need the Uncle Sam. We believe these guys have a savior complex. Your standard bearer is literally using support from the United States because he doesn't have any support back home. I would grant you that if Donald Trump, if there were people marching at Trump, you may get millions of people in the street. Does that mean that Nancy Pelosi should be able to take the presidency? Of course not. It would be nonsense. Nobody would ever, take that position to be legitimately. Especially then, Europe comes in and says, we don't like Trump either, so we're going to acknowledge Nancy Pelosi as president of the United States. Come on. What she's saying is utterly absurd. And if she's really making this argument that, they believe they have a white savior complex, you are literally getting Mike Pence and Donald Trump to usurp the sovereignty of your nation, and that they're going to immediately privatize the resources of your country, making your country submissive. But yeah, they're the ones with the white savior complex. I'll end this here because I have a thing with Guy McPherson. That's coming up next. But yeah, there are problems with the Vice News report, and Anya Pamper calling them the hipster arm of the imperialists or whatever, however she said it. Apparently she had a point. Apparently she had a point. I'll end this here. I'll see you guys in about 10 minutes. Thanks all.